What if, all of a sudden, everything you dreamed of and envisioned for your life was taken away from you? What if, after years of sacrifice, you realized you were nothing more than a piece in a cruel game? Today, you will hear the story of Emma, a woman who spent years trapped in a marriage of appearances, humiliated and treated like a mere accessory. But when she finally decided to put an end to it, she devised a plan that would change everything. In the end, he was the one who lost everything, while she became free and powerful. If you enjoy stories of resilience and justice, stay until the end. And if this story impacts you, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Emma stared at herself in the mirror, adjusting her navy blue dress. The fabric glided smoothly over her body, reflecting the golden glow of the grand chandeliers that adorned the ballroom. The room was a masterpiece of opulence. Crystal chandeliers hung from the high ceilings, casting shimmering reflections over the polished marble floors. Elegantly dressed women engaged in lively conversation, their dazzling jewelry catching the light as they flashed rehearsed smiles. The men sipped whiskey as they discussed business, their glances occasionally drifting toward their wives, as if they were nothing more than decorative accessories. The overpowering mix of perfumes blended with the scent of champagne bubbling in delicate flutes, served by impeccably dressed waiters. But to Emma, it all felt distant. The sounds were muffled, the images blurred. She felt nothing but an unbearable emptiness inside her. It was as if she were watching her life unfold through a glass pane, trapped in a reality that no longer belonged to her. Beside her, Richard held his perfect posture, greeting businessmen and their wives with a sharp smile. To him, Emma wasn't a partner, she was a trophy to be displayed. His fingers lightly pressed against her arm, a touch that, to outsiders, might seem affectionate, but she knew better. It was a warning. Smile, darling. Remember, your only job here is to look perfect. The whisper was low, but laced with coldness. Each word was another chain tightening around her. Emma obeyed, as she always did. A slight lift of her lips, a gentle gaze. The role of the ideal wife, performed flawlessly. But inside, something felt different. Something was cracking. The party carried on. The orchestra's melodies blended with the murmurs of conversation and the sound of carefully measured laughter. Camera flashes illuminated the room, capturing moments that would be printed in society columns the next morning. Richard was in his element, gliding from group to group like a king acknowledging his subjects. Emma followed, smiling at the right moments, laughing when expected, but inside, she felt suffocated, drowning in a sea of appearances. And then, she saw her. Amidst a group of elegant women stood Sophia. Time had not erased her strong, confident features, but there was something different about her, a gleam of freedom. Something Emma hadn't seen in years. She tried to resist the impulse to look away, but it was too late. Sophia's gaze had already locked onto hers. The compassion in her friend's eyes was the final blow. Emma's heart pounded in her chest. Shame burned her skin like a scorching ember. For the first time, someone truly saw her. Not as the perfect wife, but as a woman trapped, caged. That look shattered something inside her, like a mirror breaking from within. For the first time, Emma didn't want to be there. For the first time, she didn't want to be the perfect wife. For the first time, she wanted to disappear. Emma had always believed in love. She grew up listening to her mother's sweet words, "One day, you will find a man who truly loves you, and together, you will build a happy life." Those words became her guide, her absolute truth. When she met Richard, an influential and charming businessman, everything seemed to fall perfectly into place. He was attentive, gentle, and made promises of a secure future. Emma surrendered to him completely, convinced she had found the happy ending she had always dreamed of. But what seemed like a fairy tale soon turned into a silent nightmare. At first, it was the little things. Disapproving glances when she said something he deemed inappropriate. Subtle yet cutting remarks about her appearance. That dress. It doesn't suit the wife of a man in my position. Wanting to please him, Emma gave in. She thought these were just natural adjustments in married life. But the demands escalated. Richard began criticizing her in public, cutting her off mid-sentence, dismissing her opinions. "Darling, let the men talk business. You look prettier when you're quiet." The humiliation was constant, yet discreet, a collection of invisible wounds that, over the years, made her feel insignificant. He didn't want a wife. He wanted a mirror that reflected his own greatness. Emma reshaped herself to fit into that suffocating box. She abandoned her dreams of becoming a writer, gave up her spontaneous travels, silenced her love for bookstores and cozy cafes. Everything was erased so she could play the role of the perfect wife. And then came the betrayal. The image of Richard, seated in a luxurious restaurant, holding hands with a much younger woman, burned into her mind like a scar. But the worst part wasn't the affair itself, it was the way he reacted when she confronted him. "Oh, Emma, don't be dramatic," he laughed, as if explaining something obvious to a child. "This is what men like me do. Did you really think your role here was anything more than keeping up appearances?" The laughter of his friends echoed through the restaurant, a silent judgment. An entire table of people watching her humiliation as if it were a show. Emma froze. No one intervened. No one looked at her with empathy. No one defended her. That night, something inside her shattered. In the following days, she locked herself in her room, rummaging through old notebooks hidden in the back of her closet. Between yellowed pages filled with dreams and stories that once set her soul on fire, she found traces of the woman she had been before Richard. Her fingers traced over words written with passion, with hope. "What have I done to myself?" she whispered, gripping one of the notebooks tightly, as if that piece of paper were an anchor to her lost identity. And then, for the first time in a long time, Emma knew exactly what she needed to do. She would no longer be a reflection of Richard. She would reclaim her life, no matter the cost. That night, after the humiliation, Emma locked herself in the bathroom of their bedroom. The silence of the room contrasted with the storm raging inside her. The cold lights illuminated her pale face, revealing traces of tears she had refused to let fall. Her eyes were red, not just from sorrow, but from the suppressed rage now boiling within her. She stared at her reflection. She no longer recognized herself. The woman in the mirror was not the dreamer she once was, not the woman who believed in love and partnership. What remained was a shadow of who she had been, shaped by contempt, humiliation, and submission. "What have I become?" she murmured, her trembling fingers sliding over the glass, as if trying to reach for something lost. "How did I let it come to this?" The laughter of Richard and his friends still echoed in her mind, mocking her, belittling her existence as if she were nothing. Her stomach churned. The pain was deep, but this time, unlike before, she didn't feel the urge to shrink away and accept it. No. This time, something different stirred inside her. Pain turned into fury. Taking a deep breath, Emma wiped her tears with force and straightened her back. She felt her spine align in a way it hadn't in years. For the first time, the pain didn't weaken her. On the contrary, it strengthened her. She would no longer submit. She would leave Richard. But simply walking away would be too easy on him. No, that wouldn't be enough. He needed to feel what it was like to lose everything. He needed to understand what it meant to be treated like nothing. Emma began to plan. It was at that moment that Sophia reappeared in her life. Now a successful lawyer specializing in divorce and women's rights, she was exactly the ally Emma needed. Their reunion happened unexpectedly, in a quiet cafe far from Richard's social circles. When Sophia saw Emma, her eyes filled with sadness and concern. "Emma," she said softly, taking her hands firmly in hers. "I'm so sorry I wasn't here sooner." Emma blinked quickly, holding back tears. No one had said that to her in years. No one had acknowledged her pain. I thought you were happy, Sophia continued. But when I saw you at that party. God, Emma, your eyes were screaming for help. Emma swallowed hard. For the first time, she allowed herself to admit it. I need to get out of this, Sophia. Her voice came out as a tense whisper. But I can't just leave. He needs to feel what he put me through. Sophia's lips curled into a determined smile. Emma, I'm a lawyer. I know exactly how to expose Richard and make him pay for what he did to you. But we have to be smart. We'll do this the right way, with every detail carefully calculated. A spark of hope ignited inside Emma. For the first time, she wasn't alone. With Sophia's encouragement, Emma started working toward her independence. In secret, she began writing again. At first, it wasn't for money or recognition, it was therapy. Every word she typed was an open wound being exposed, a pain being transformed into strength. She wrote about women who had been silenced, who had lost their identities, but who, against all odds, found a way to rebuild themselves. The process was liberating. For the first time in years, Emma felt like she had a voice. She spent nights at her computer, pouring all her pain and frustration into powerful, visceral writing. Her fingers flew over the keyboard, every sentence charged with emotions she couldn't yet say out loud. Writing became her silent revenge. She published her stories under a pseudonym, and to her surprise, success came quickly. Her words resonated with thousands of women around the world, women who, like her, had lost themselves in oppressive relationships. Her writings went viral, and for the first time in years, Emma felt truly alive. But this was just the beginning. She still had a revenge to complete. Leaving a man like Richard wouldn't be simple. He had control over everything, her money, her connections, even her image. But Emma was far more intelligent than he ever gave her credit for. With Sophia now as her trusted ally and lawyer, Emma began to carefully plan her escape. First, we need to ensure you have a financial safety net, Sophia said, spreading a series of documents across the table. Richard has complete control over all your accounts, so we'll need to create a secret fund for you. We'll start by transferring small amounts to an offshore account that he won't be able to trace. Emma looked at the papers, feeling the weight of her decision. What if he finds out? She asked, her voice laced with uncertainty. Sophia reached across the table and squeezed her hand firmly. He won't. We'll do it gradually, without raising any suspicion. You have to trust me. Emma nodded, determination settling into her bones. Over the following weeks, she executed the plan meticulously. Every financial move was calculated, small, discreet transactions that would go unnoticed. At the same time, she began meeting with contacts Sophia introduced her to, people who could help her rebuild her life once she was free. But then came the discovery that changed everything: Richard was involved in financial fraud. Emma, listen to me carefully, Sophia said, gripping a thick dossier filled with incriminating documents. Richard has been engaging in illegal transactions for years. If we use this against him at the right moment, we can take him down before he even realizes what's happening. Emma flipped through the pages, a rush of shock and adrenaline coursing through her veins. Is this enough to destroy him? More than enough, Sophia confirmed. But we have to be careful. If he suspects anything, he might try to take you down first. Emma took a deep breath. Now, more than ever, she knew she couldn't turn back. That night, lying beside Richard, inhaling the scent of his expensive cologne, she realized just how much her life was about to change. Her heart pounded, not just from the fear of being discovered, but from the exhilarating knowledge that, for the first time, she was in control. She was no longer the submissive woman he had shaped. Now, she was the one holding the reins to his fate. And he had no idea. Little by little, Emma became a new woman. The fear that once paralyzed her now propelled her forward. Each step she took toward her freedom made her stronger. She started dressing differently, not to please Richard, but to please herself. Her clothes now reflected the woman she had always wanted to be, confident, self-assured, and in control of her own destiny. She began frequenting places that had once been forbidden to her, savoring the taste of freedom in every small act of autonomy. Her days were filled with meetings, strategic planning, and unwavering focus on her ultimate goal. But her true refuge was her writing. What had once been just an escape became her sanctuary. Each piece she published under her pseudonym grew in reach and impact. Messages poured in from women around the world, sharing their stories, telling her that her words had helped them find strength. Her work was becoming more than an outlet, it was becoming a movement. One day, she stood before the mirror and studied her reflection. The glow in her eyes had returned. She smiled at herself, knowing she was ready. It was time for the final move. That night, she sat across from Richard at the massive dining table. He was absorbed in his phone, as always, his face completely unbothered, as if nothing in the world could ever slip from his control. "Dinner is fine. But honestly, you could put in more effort," he muttered without even looking up. Emma took a deep breath and slid an envelope toward him. Richard furrowed his brows, finally glancing up. "What is this?" "My divorce papers." Silence. For a moment, he blinked, as if he hadn't fully processed her words. Then, he threw his head back and laughed. "You have nowhere to go, Emma. Without me, you are nothing. How are you going to survive? Writing little stories?" He chuckled again, mockingly. "That's cute. But it's not going to happen. I won't allow it." Emma crossed her arms and leaned forward slightly. "You don't need to allow it, Richard. It's already done." His expression hardened. For the first time, he truly looked at her. Something was different. The submissive woman he had controlled for years was gone. "You're making a mistake," he said coldly. Emma smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "No. The mistake was yours, Richard. For years. Now, it's my turn to play." At that moment, he had no idea that his life was about to fall apart. Weeks later, the bomb detonated. Emma had made sure that Richard didn't just lose his empire, his downfall was public and humiliating. First, the allegations of financial fraud surfaced in the media, making him the target of multiple investigations. His reputation, built on arrogance and manipulation, crumbled like a house of cards. Investors and business partners abandoned him, fearing they'd be dragged into the scandal. But Emma wasn't finished. Using the network she had carefully built over the past few months, she ensured that Richard could never regain his fortune. Every door he tried to open was already sealed shut. Lawyers refused to take his cases, banks denied his credit applications, and the friends who once worshipped his wealth now pretended they had never met him. Then came the final blow, the exposure of his infidelities and years of humiliating behavior. A scathing article detailed his affairs and the way he had treated Emma. The man who had once laughed at her vulnerability was now the subject of public ridicule and disgrace. Meanwhile, his wife, the woman he had underestimated, had become a successful author and a respected public figure. And Richard? He was nothing. A broken, penniless man with no future. Meanwhile, Emma packed her bags. Each item she folded was a symbol of her liberation. She wasn't just leaving that house, she was leaving behind years of pain, silence, and submission. As she stepped outside, the crisp night air touched her skin. For the first time in a long time, she breathed without the weight of oppression on her shoulders. In the passenger seat of the car, Sophia waited with a satisfied smile. "Where to?" she asked. Emma looked out the window, feeling the wind against her face, and smiled. "Wherever I want." And with that, she drove away to start her new life. Richard sought her out. He was no longer the powerful man who once boasted about having the world at his feet. His face was gaunt, the wrinkles on his forehead deeper, his once arrogant eyes now filled with desperation. Gone were the expensive suits, the air of superiority. His once commanding posture had withered under the weight of his downfall. Emma was seated at an elegant cafe, reviewing the final details of her new book when she saw him walk in. Her stomach churned, not with fear, but with disbelief. He really had the audacity to show up. He hesitated for a moment before stopping beside her table. His voice was hoarse, stripped of the confidence it once carried. "Emma, can I talk to you?" She lifted her eyes slowly, without rush. With measured grace, she closed her notebook and folded her hands on the table, studying him as if he were nothing more than a stranger. "I believe we've already said everything there was to say, Richard." He pulled out the chair across from her, ignoring the iciness in her tone. "I need you. I was wrong. I know I was a fool. But everything has fallen apart, and I don't know what to do." Emma observed his pleading face, searching for the emotions she once thought she would feel in this moment: vindication, satisfaction, perhaps even triumph. But instead, she felt nothing. "You need me." Her voice was soft, yet laced with bitter irony. "Funny. You always told me that without you, I was nothing. And now I see it was the other way around." Richard lowered his head, rubbing his hands together, shame evident in every movement. "Help me, Emma. I know I was terrible to you, but you were always by my side. Forgive me. Please." She tilted her head slightly, as if analyzing his plea. The man who once treated her like a mere object now sat before her, reduced to a beggar, pleading for scraps of mercy. Emma exhaled, then slowly rose to her feet. She picked up her bag and locked eyes with him one last time. "Richard, I've already forgiven myself, for believing in you, for letting myself live that life. But you?" She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. "What you planted, you're now harvesting. And me? I'm finally free." Without another word, she stepped aside, leaving him there, lost, broken, while she walked away with her head held high, never looking back. And for the first time, Richard knew what it truly meant to lose everything. Today, Emma lives the life she always wanted. Not in a lavish mansion filled with empty ostentation, but in cozy cafes around the world, where she writes her stories, stories that now belong solely to her. Her name has become synonymous with strength and rebirth. The books that once began as personal therapy now inspire thousands of women across the globe. They send her letters and messages, sharing how her words opened their eyes to the invisible prisons they lived in, encouraging them to seek their own freedom. Emma reads every message with a full heart, knowing that her pain has transformed into something powerful. Her days are spent between travels, lectures, and moments of writing, but what moves her the most is the freedom to choose where to be and with whom to share her life. By her side, Sophia remains her closest friend and confidant, reminding her of how it all began. One starry night, sitting on the veranda of a seaside chalet, Emma gazes at the horizon and smiles. For so long, she had believed her story was written by someone else's hands, that her fate was unchangeable. But now, as she breathes in the salty air and holds a new manuscript ready for publication, she knows that she was the one who rewrote her own life. Weeks later, Emma stepped onto the stage of one of the country's most prestigious literary events. The lights shone on her, and the audience rose in applause. Her name was now a symbol of resilience and inspiration. She accepted the award for her latest book, a story that told of her journey to overcoming, without naming names, but resonating with women worldwide. Standing before the microphone, her voice was steady, filled with emotion, yet unwavering. "For years, I believed I had no choice. But I discovered that the power to rewrite our story is in our own hands. This award is not just for me. It's for every woman who, like me, once thought she was trapped. There is always a way out. And it is never too late to start over. The crowd erupted in applause, and among them, Sophia smiled proudly. As Emma stepped down from the stage, she knew, now, more than ever, she was exactly where she was meant to be. She had won. And you? What would you do if you realized you were trapped in a relationship that dims your light, silences your voice, and makes you forget who you really are? Would you have the courage to start over? If this story moved you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more stories of resilience and new beginnings. Leave a comment and share this with someone who needs to hear this message.